The heavy oak doors of the courtroom groaned as they swung shut, sealing the room in a tense stillness that felt as thick as the humid afternoon air outside. The murmurs of the gathered crowd had subsided to a suffocating silence, all eyes fixed on the man standing quietly in the center, the man who carried the weight of a nation's hopes and controversies alike. Ibrahim Traoré, at 5 feet 9 inches, with an imposing yet unassuming posture, his face was a map of resilience carved by years of battles, both political and personal. His sharp eyes scanned the room, calm but deeply reflective, like storm clouds gathering silently before a storm. The sun filtered through the high windows, casting elongated shadows that danced on the polished wood floor, shadows that seemed to mirror the duality of Ibrahim's life, the leader and the man, the hero and the flawed human. The judge's gavel cracked through the silence like thunder, jolting the courtroom awake. "Mr. Traoré," the judge's voice was stern but weary, "for your actions last month in the town of Kadiogo, you are hereby fined 10,000 CFA francs for unauthorized assembly and disturbing the peace." A collective intake of breath filled the room. A fine? For Ibrahim Traoré? Many in the crowd had expected harsher consequences, or at least a firmer reprimand. Yet, here was the judge, slapping a mere fine on a man who had become a lightning rod of change in Burkina Faso. Ibrahim's lips pressed into a thin, unreadable line. He bowed his head briefly, acknowledging the sentence without protest. Then, when all expected him to retreat into silence, he surprised everyone. He lifted his gaze slowly, eyes locking with the judge's. The room held its breath. "Your Honor," Ibrahim's voice was calm but carried the weight of a promise. "I accept this fine, but I ask permission to address the court before I leave." The judge, taken aback but intrigued, nodded slowly. The courtroom doors seemed to fade away as Ibrahim began to speak, his voice resonating with a power that transcended the walls. Hook. The unexpected speech. "I come before you not just as a man fined," Ibrahim said, "but as a servant of the people who long for justice. I was fined today for gathering voices, voices crying out for change, for dignity, for hope. I stand here not guilty of crime, but guilty of love for my country." Hush settled, the air charged with electricity. Some eyes shimmered with tears, others narrowed in skeptical curiosity. The judge leaned forward, the gavel forgotten on the bench. Introduction and setup. The story that brought Ibrahim here was one that stretched far beyond the walls of this courtroom, a story rooted in the dusty streets of Ouagadougou, where hope often felt as fragile as the brittle leaves that littered the cracked sidewalks. Ibrahim had grown up amid hardship. His childhood was a tapestry of worn-out shoes, evenings punctuated by the faint aroma of smoky fires, and a father's voice that sang songs of freedom and resistance. Yet beneath that resilience lay scars, the scars of witnessing injustice that stained his community like an unrelenting shadow. By the time he became the leader of a revolutionary movement, Ibrahim's heart carried the weight of a country shackled by corruption and neglect. His spirit was a flickering flame, often threatened but never extinguished. The day he was fined was born out of desperation and courage, a protest that erupted when the government tried to silence voices demanding fair wages, clean water, and basic human rights. Ibrahim had stood at the forefront, a beacon to the masses, rallying with a passion that frightened those in power. Conflict or challenge introduced. Yet in that courtroom, something unexpected stirred. Among the audience sat a young girl, barely 12, clutching a small worn notebook. Her name was Awa, a quiet child from the very streets Ibrahim fought for. She watched him with wide, hopeful eyes that reflected dreams still unbroken. When Ibrahim finished his speech, the judge remained silent, the weight of the moment pressing down like the scorching sun outside. Suddenly, a small voice pierced the tension. "Sir," Awa whispered, standing and stepping forward hesitantly. "I wrote down what you said. Will you help us? Will you help me?" The courtroom gasped. Guards moved to stop her, but Ibrahim's gentle hand raised in quiet command. He smiled, a rare softness touching his lips. "Tell me, Awa, How can I help? Midpoint revelation or twist, the young girl unfolded her notebook. Inside were pages filled with drawings and words, stories of the people, their struggles, their hopes, and their losses. I live in Kadiogo, she said, voice trembling. My family is poor. My little brother is sick, but there is no medicine, no clean water. We are afraid. As Ibrahim looked at the drawings, a memory surged. A forgotten promise he made years ago as a young man. A promise to always protect the children. Suddenly, he understood. The fine was not just a punishment, but a call, a summons to act beyond politics and protests. With a deep breath, Ibrahim turned back to the judge. Your Honor, he said quietly, I ask for permission not just to pay this fine, but to visit Kadiogo with your blessing. Let me see the suffering firsthand, and I vow to return with solutions, not words. The judge hesitated. Then, after a long pause, nodded slowly. Climax, emotional breakthrough in. The weeks that followed, Ibrahim traveled to Kadiogo with Awa as his guide. The village was a patchwork of cracked earth, sun-bleached homes, and weary faces. But amid the hardship, Ibrahim found hope in the laughter of children, the resilience of mothers, the quiet determination of elders. One afternoon, sitting beneath a gnarled baobab tree, Ibrahim watched as Awa handed a small vial of medicine to her ailing brother. His eyes filled with tears, not of sorrow but of renewed purpose. You're not broken, he whispered. You're becoming. It was a phrase that would echo in his heart forever, a testament to the unyielding spirit of a people rising. Resolution and quiet closure. Back in the courtroom months later, Ibrahim returned, not as a defendant but as a changed man. The judge smiled faintly, the earlier tension softened by respect. The fine had been paid, but its true cost had been paid in courage and compassion. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light on the city, a city ready to heal, ready to hope. Call to action. If this story touched your heart, consider subscribing for more inspiring tales of hope, healing, and unexpected kindness. Hit the like button and share this with someone who needs it today.